This is Savannah Mayfield, and I'm doing my compare and contrast project, but as a video. So 3 developmental differences that I noticed. For one was classroom management. In Melanie McCormick's video, she talks about how classroom management was like a challenge that she had teaching K through 1. Just like as far as like student needs, behavioral plans, and getting support from like her colleagues in her district or like her principal and stuff. I think that it was really interesting because as students get older, like that classroom management, yes, it's there, but it's like a different form of classroom management. It's not the same as, having a bunch of patients for, your 30 kindergartners or first graders. Going outside takes you probably like 45 minutes to get everyone dressed and ready to go outside, especially in the winter. So I think that that's like really interesting because students are like at that young age, they're still trying to figure out what they need from a teacher and what we can do for them. So as far as like student needs and behavioral plans, like even if they need an IEP or like they are special education, like they all are trying to get that figured out within those first couple years. So as they progress in their education, they do not have to revisit those. Like the IEP would already be set and we would know what the student needs. So it's definitely challenging trying to get all of that, and I can understand why, because they are very tiny humans. And a couple other differences I noticed. I really enjoyed John Shaloma's video. Sorry if I'm totally butchering his name, but I actually know Allison that he did his video with Mrs. Philippe, and she's great. So I really enjoyed their interview together. They had great energy, the two of them, so that was really nice. But the challenges that he had talked about facing as a teacher was about past student experiences and how some kids like dislike school and they're constantly like battling that mindset. And I experienced that this summer when I taught. I was at a place called Downtown Boxing Gym at Detroit's East Side, and it was interesting to notice like how discouraged my students would get when I would pull out a worksheet or when they would come in and see pencils on the table, or just I could watch their faces. Like it would change, everything would change, the environment would change within the classroom, and I was just like met with combativeness from those students, and I wasn't understanding why until I sat down and talked with one of the older teachers who had been there, and she was explaining to me like how a lot of students there, because it's challenging to read and write, that they are easily discouraged by the thought of a pencil or a worksheet, and the thought of having to do something on their own is like essentially terrifying. So I wasn't there to like make them feel that way, but knowing that was how they felt when I presented that to them, like obviously made me step back and like take a different approach. So from that, like we did skits, and so like with that, like I was able to see that they could write a script, they were capable of assigning parts and like understanding what was being taught over the course of the summer. So I think it's just interesting that we have to find different ways to get through to kids, because a lot of times teachers will just be very dismissive of it and try to use punishment, and there's no need for punishment when students genuinely have no idea what they're doing. I don't think that that's fair in any type of way. And also he talked about the content that's being taught. So in a lot of the videos, they talked about like how lower level or lower elementary and upper elementary, and just like the differences between the two, and like how in lower elementary you're really focusing on like how to read and like letter recognition and phonics and recognizing the sounds that our letters are making, and then like the upper elementary is more like informational text and like wanting to learn from the text. So I think that the content can also be challenging, and even though it's like the same thing that we're essentially teaching students, it's just going about in a different way. And I think in the upper elementary, students are working on their it's more like their critical thinking skills, and so they're starting like to think outside of the box and like utilize that abstract thinking, and thinking about the world around them, and not so much what they've been exposed to, but what they could be exposed to potentially. So I think that makes for better conversation, definitely more frustration. I think both from the teacher and from students, just because the content can be so heavy, and as a little person trying to understand history, for example, it is a lot to take in, and you have questions, you don't understand, you've never heard something or knew that something like this could ever happen, and now that you know, like, you are mad. So it's frustrating. And he talked about like the complexities in grade levels, and just how everyone is has a different understanding of the material being taught, and just being able to facilitate those conversations, and just like explain to students what we're learning and how it's actually beneficial to them, and that it's not just a bunch of nonsense that they're here learning. Because yes, school can be boring, we know that, but when students can relate to the material that's being taught and it can be beneficial for them in a way, I think that they're more prone to pay attention and retain what's being taught to them.
Okay, so here we have the visual representation aspect that I did for my project, and at the top here we can see some lower elementary level classrooms. As you can see, like, each one has a carpet and like a little station for like one-on-one time with the teacher, and just like small group work with the teacher, and libraries. Very fun. You can see it's very welcoming, very colorful, not your typical upper level elementary classroom. As we can see, if we move down to the bottom, where it's more structured like a classroom, we see desks. It is still colorful and inviting, but just in a different way. You can tell that, older kids are being taught here. There is still an inviting space for students to come and sit and, hang out with the teacher, get that one-on-one time, get that group work time in. Now I really like the layout of these classrooms. I do like being able to have that carpet time, and students being able to be in pods, and getting that group interaction with one another. I also think too it's very important for students to switch seats, not necessarily have a new desk or something, but maybe we're switching the room around and moving desks around, and that way everyone just feels included, and no one ever feels like they're left out of the classroom setting, or even just like their pod section. It's very important, I feel, for all students to feel accepted within their space, and that also helps create a sense of community within the classroom, but also in the school as well. They will feel comfortable, when they're out on the playground, interacting with one another, and even outside of the classroom. So I really feel like that's important too, and especially carpet time. Just being able to have some time to unwind with students, and for them to be able to relax, or just hang out if they're feeling overwhelmed, because a reminder, they are human as well. We all definitely get overwhelmed, and especially school can be frustrating, whether or not it's with the material or with the drama that's going on in the classroom. Sometimes we just need to take a second and have a breather. So I feel like that space is also very important to have in the classroom. But yeah, this was all I had for my project. I really enjoyed it. I really liked the videos that we watched, and it was just really helpful to hear from so many teachers who have been doing this for so many years, and they had a lot of helpful insight. I think we can all agree that we obviously all want to be teachers, because yes, we love kids, but everyone said, most of all these teachers said in the video, like, if you don't, if you're second guessing teaching, it's most likely not for you, because when you know, and that's just, I feel like that's so true, because if we've made it this far, I'm in my 4th year, and if you're making it this far and you're still second guessing it, like, maybe you should turn around. But I definitely feel
like this project was helpful to me in many different ways, just from learning, you know, the different things that go on in the classroom that I haven't quite yet experienced, or things that I have experienced, and just to hear them, you know, coming from other people, it kind of settles me and reminds me that I'm also human as well and not a robot.